It's Zayin Iyar. And like I told you this morning, a long time ago today, the moon fell for the first time. Zayin Iyar, 2448, and it was also on a Sunday. And we're learning Parsha, and the topic of tonight is Onaa. Of course, this week is together, Behar and B'chukoisai together. It's a leap year. So when you have a leap year, all of the Parshas of Vayikra are crunched. And Behar B'chukoisai. And of course, V'yakal Pekudei is usually crunched. And of course, the reason for this is because you want to get the Shavuos after Bamidbar. Why do you want to get the Shavuos after Bamidbar? The official reason is because you want the Teichacha, the curses, to be before Shavuos. As the Gemara says that the Shavuos is called Rosh Hashanah. Just like Rosh Hashanah is called Rosh Hashanah, Shavuos is called Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara says, Tachel Shana v'kil leiseha v'tachel Shana u'birchei said, the year and its curses should end, so the year and its blessings should begin. So therefore you want to have, before Shavuos, you want to finish with the Teichacha. But we don't want that Shavuos should be blessed from that Shabbos. So Bamidbar has to be before Shavuos. And very, very infrequently, sometimes, also Naseh. But of course there's a positive spin to this, like the Rebbe says, and that is that before Shavuos you read Bamidbar, you count the Jewish people. A Jew is counted. Because the Jew is counted, every Jew is precious. Kol kavua kamechza mechza. Every one is like the whole nation, and the whole nation is in each one. Be that as it may, for all of these reasons, Behar and B'chukoisai come together so that Bamidbar will be as it is this year right before Shavuos. Shavuos this year is Friday and Shabbos. So this week is B'chukoisai and Behar, the Shal week is Bamidbar, and in other words, we're about 3 weeks from Shavuos. Parshas Behar and B'chukoisai have a lot of different stuff in them. There's a Rashi at the end of Parshas Behar, which I once gave a class on, that shows, it's based on a Maimon Chazal, that all of the events in the Parsha are contiguous. It starts off with the laws of Shemitah. The beginning of the Parsha is about keeping Shemitah, the sabbatical. That is followed up by the laws of Yovel, the years of the Jubilee. And then starts all kinds of other stuff. Selling things, selling land in Israel, not lending and borrowing with interest, sending land, which is your inheritance in Eretz Yisrael, and then God forbid being sold as a slave. And Rashi says, if you're not careful about the mitzvahs, you end up selling. First you send your metaltalin, your movable commodities, then you send your land, and then you sell yourself, and so forth. Or the whole Parshas Behar has a whole series of mitzvahs that reflect what happens to Yidden when they're in a need. They have to sell things. The Gemara says that anytime somebody sells something, we assume it's an oinus. A person is forced, because people like to keep what they have. When a person is selling something, it's because they have no choice. So selling, it shows that they're in a compromised condition. Parshas B'chukoisai, you have the bris, the covenant. It starts off very, very positive, that when Yidden are good, they're going to get schar. And on the other hand, the Parsha discusses, if we're not going to be good, we're going to get oinish. And then it gets kind of unpleasant, right? Parshas B'chukoisai gets mighty unpleasant. And the end of Parshas B'chukoisai talks about Erchin. Erki Allah, Erchin. Now, for those of you who were here last year was a leap year. So Behar and B'chukoisai were separate. And I remember what we did. We did Parshas Behar, we did Kinyonim, sales. And Parshas B'chukoisai, we did Arochem, Erchin, Erki Alai, that when your person has to evaluate his own worth, to give that equivalent to the Beis HaMikdash. I'm just reminding you, so you should feel, yeah, sure, I remember that. But last year we had two classes per Parsha. It was much more involved. And I left myself a note that this year we should do Onaa. Last year's topic was Kinyonim, the laws of acquisition, different ways people can acquire things. And again, I don't know how much you remember, but the Chassidus was very, very beautiful about the different ways people acquire things. And the Maimed explained that Kinyan is Kvayacha, what Eibishter is, so to speak, purchasing things from us. And there's 2 levels. One is we're giving him, and the other is where he's raising it up. It was an involved discussion that we had last year about Kinyonim. Woven into the fabric of the discussion of Kinyonim is the laws of Onaa. In Torah there are many, many mitzvahs, obviously. Included are the laws of business, how people should deal in their interactions with other people in terms of business affairs. Buying and selling and renting and borrowing and hiring, and there's many, many halachas, which is called mishpatim. In our parsha we also have the din of Kinyonim. Kinyonim means that if I want to give you something, and you want to take something from me, it's not enough that I agree that it's yours, it's not enough that you agree that I've given it to you. That's to be an act of kinyan, an act of acquisition. In other words, Torah says everything is where it is unless you change it. So if I own a pencil or a watch or a piece of land and I want to give it to you, or you want to buy it from me, there's got to be an act of kinyan, an official act of acquisition that makes it go from my reshus into your reshus. Superficially, b'chitzanies, it looks like who cares, I agree to sell, you agree to buy, that's a deal. But Torah says it has to be an act of kinyan, of acquisition. And there's different types of kinyanim. Woven into the discussion of kinyanim are the laws of Onaa. Onaa, I suppose the way you would translate Onaa is inflation. You're not allowed to overcharge or undercharge. If you overcharge too much or you undercharge too much, the sale is reversed. It's called Onaa. Torah worries about inflation. Inflating prices or deflating prices. If a price of an item is deflated more than a sixth of its value, or if a price of an item is inflated more than a sixth of its value, this is called Onaa. And the halacha of Onaa has three categories. Onaa means inflation, overcharging or undercharging. And the halacha of Onaa is as follows. There's under a sixth, there's exactly a sixth, and more than a sixth. If the discrepancy in price is less than a sixth, in other words, less than a sixth more, or less than a sixth less, we say mechila. The sale is a sale, and the discrepancy is a discrepancy. Prices fluctuate. If it's exactly 1/6, the halacha is the mekach is a mekach umachzir Onaa. You have to give back the inflation. In other words, if you overcharge, you have to return that sixth, or if you undercharge, you have to be given that sixth. But the sale is a sale. If, however, it was sold for more than a sixth, or if it was sold for less than a sixth of its actual value, there's a halacha of bittul mekach. It's called mekach tos, where the one who loses, whether he's the seller or the buyer, says, forget the sale, I want my commodity back. Those are halachas. One of the halachas of Onaa is that ein Onaa lekarkois. That means to say there's no laws of inflation about real estate, because real estate is priceless. Like someone told me once, they ain't making no more square feet on the planet, they're not making more real estate. Real estate is something which you cannot measure. So there's a halacha of ein Onaa lekarkois. There's other halachas as well. The irony is that the halachas of Onaa are written in what looks like an event of selling karka. It's a really weird thing, and all the Rishonim and Achanim struggle with it. So we're going to have a class on Onaa, but I want to tell you something very straight. We're not lawyers, and we're not learning business law. I didn't gather you together here to tell you halachas of sales, and you want to go that, you can sit down with it. It's a Parsha class. So we are going to learn this pasuk, or this series of psukim, and in doing so we're going to encounter many of the halachas associated with sales, but our interest is to go beyond that. Our interest is not just to learn the halachic dimensions of Onaa, but the pnimius of it, the spiritual significance of Onaa. There's some very, very beautiful, the yukim, the one who really gets your attention this week on the level of drush is the Al-Shich. Al-Shich's commentaries and observations are incredible. And the Tzemach Tzedek has a short little maimer, which is, it's beyond Kabbalah. It's one page, and he refers you to the sources in Kabbalah. The sources in Kabbalah are easier to read, and the Tzemach Tzedek's one page. But that's what we're going to do tonight. So he said the topic is Onaa. So again, the way you should see it is last year we learned the halachas of kinyanim. The idea that when something is bought or sold, it has to be acquired, either through money, or through chlipin, or through hagbah, or through masira, or through mashiach. There's different types of kinyanim. And today we'll learn that when you sell something, you're not allowed to charge too much. So we begin Pasuk Yudalet, which is Sheni in Parsha Behar, which is part of today's Chitas, because we read today two Kriyas because it's a double Parsha. V'chitimkeru mimka lamisech. When one sells a sale to his fellow, or he buys something from his fellow, says the Torah, al teinu ish as achiv. Do not inflate or deflate one another. Don't overcharge more than a reasonable amount, and do not undercharge more than a reasonable amount. In other words, there's two halachas in Onaa. The moicher, the seller, is not allowed to overcharge, and the leikeach is not allowed to underpay. It's a law of Onaa. In other words, there has to be laws of the marketplace, what they would call in America price regulations. The price has to be regulated. Too high, too low, there's halachas of mechila, machzir Onaa, and bittul mekach, like I told you in the introduction. The next pasuk says, b'mitzpar shonim achar hayovel. Considering the number of years since Yovel, tikna, that's how somebody should buy me'esa misacha from his friend. B'mispar shnei tvues, counting how many harvests of grain there is between now and the Jubilee. Yimka lacha Allah, that's how the sale should be done. If there are many years till the Jubilee, the sale should be for a higher value. If there are fewer years until the Jubilee, you should diminish the value of the sale. He's not selling you a piece of land, he's selling you harvests, seasons, crops. And therefore you should evaluate based on real estate. In other words, the Torah tells you this halacha that you shouldn't overcharge and undercharge, and gives you the case in point is what's called in Torah stei achuza. What does stei achuza mean? If you own land in Eretz Yisrael, it's a birthright. And the halacha of this birthright is that you could never ever sell it forever. If you own land because you inherited it from your grandparents and was given to your elder Zayda from Yeshua ben Nun, or Mashiach comes, like it says in Tanakh, Mashiach is going to divide Etzron into 13 parts, and we're going to be given a piece of land which is going to be our birthright, you cannot sell it. You sell it temporarily, but when the Jubilee comes, it boomerangs. It becomes yours again. In other words, in Eretz Yisrael, there's no such thing as a permanent sale of real estate. There are a couple of exceptions to this rule. There's also ways of getting around it, but that's the halach. So the din is, when you sell land, you're not selling land. You're selling the value of the land, because you're going to have to give the land back. So the Torah says, listen, the Jubilee is going to come, you have to give the land back. When you sell it, measure how many years are left till the Jubilee and sell accordingly. If there's 10 years left, you've sold 10 harvests. If there's 48 years left, you've sold 48 harvests. And charge and pay accordingly. If you charge too much or you pay too little, it's called Onaa. Now the irony here is that this is real estate. And I told you about 5 minutes ago that there's no such thing as overcharging by karka, which is the issue that drives all the chachamim crazy. The din of Onaa is written in a case where there is no Onaa. It's one of those ironies of the Torah. In other words, you have two mitzvahs woven into the same pasuk. One pasuk says that when you buy or sell things, you shouldn't overcharge or underpay. But this halacha of not overcharging, underpaying only works by commodities that are movable, like animals, like produce, like commercial, technological things and so forth, but not about land. And in the same sequence, the pasuk says, and when it comes to real estate, you should charge according to its own value. So the psukim are very confusing, because the psukim that tells halachas of Onaa give us an example of something where there's no din of Onaa. And then to top it all off, in the next pasuk, the Torah repeats itself a second time. V'lei seinu ishas amisei. Do not overcharge or underpay one another. You should fear God. Ki ani ad Hashem, I am God, Elokeichem, your God. These are the psukim Rabbi say around which this class is going to revolve. The obvious question is, why did the Torah have to tell us twice the same thing? You're not allowed to do what's called Onaa. Onaa means to inflate or deflate, overcharge or underpay. So in Pasuk Yudalad it says Al Toinu, and then in Pasuk Yudayin it says again V'loi Soinu Ish Esamisai. Why the same lav twice? The second question is, there's no Onaa by real estate, there's no Onaa by land. And if there's no Onaa by land, what's real estate doing in the sequence? The Torah is telling us that if you overcharge or underpay, like I said to you before, there's three halachas. Either there's mechila, or there's hamechel kayim umachsan Onaa, or there's bittul mekach, depending if it's less than a sixth, exactly a sixth, or more than a sixth. And in the same sequence, it talks about real estate, but there's no din of Onaa. It's very confusing. And there's one more diuk, which is the diuk of the Alshich, the Moshe Alshich. When you have in Chassidus, upirish Haramah is not Ramesha Isilis. Haramah is Ramesha Alshich. It's a beautiful pirish, Ramesha Alshich, pirish al Torah. And the Chassam Sefer, others follow in the same observation. The Torah starts off talking about Amisei, your friend, and it finishes off talking about Ishas Ochiv, your brother. Did you notice? V'chitimku mimkar la'amisecha, you sell something to your friend. Ekane miyad amisecha, you buy something from your friend. And then it says, Al teinu ish as achiv. Do not inflate or deflate the price when you're in relation with your own brothers. Then in Pasuk Tezvav it says again, Me'es amisecha. And in Pasuk Yud Zayin it says again, Ishas amisei. Why is it that at the end of the first Pasuk it says Ishas achiv, and the other time it says Ishas amisei? And the Alshich gives you one pshat, and the Chassam Sefer gives you mamish the exact opposite pshat. And of course, like everybody who comes to these classes already knows, what's new? The beauty of Torah is the diversity. Okay? So now let us begin. So does everybody have it clear? Do you see? You got the picture? I read 4 psukim, which is a lot to keep track of, but we've got 3 questions. We have 3 questions. First of all, why does the Torah have to say 2 times Lo Toinu? In pasuk Yudalad it says Al Toinu, and in pasuk Yudzayin it says V'lo Yisainu. Second question is, why do you talk about real estate when we know in Onaa Karkois there's no laws of Onaa by Karka? Right? And thirdly, how come in most of the sequence it says the word Amisei, which means your friend, but at the end of the first pasuk it says Ishes Achiv, your brother. And believe me, you can have 30 questions if you wanted them, but 3 is sufficient. So we start with Rasag, which is on the upper right of page 1. Al Toinu translates Absad Yagom Al Tirmu. Don't trick. Binyani Mekach Memkir about matters of selling and business. And on page 2, again on the upper right, it says Ani Hashem Alekeichem. Says that Asag, what is the meaning of the words Ani Hashem Alekeichem? It's up to Ani Hashem Alekeichem Ma'anish. I am God who punishes. Now I'm going to go out on a limb and say something. What I'm about to say is without any basis, but I have a shtickle raya from Panim Yafis. Panim Yafis says something similar. There's 2 psukim say exactly the same thing. Don't cheat and don't cheat. You should fear God. I am God. So Rasag says on the first pasuk, don't cheat, and the second pasuk says, I punish. There is an inyan in Torah that's called Azhara and Einish. That a lot of times things are repeated in the Torah 2 times. The first time it's telling you not to do it, and the second time it's telling you the punishment. So I am proposing to you that that's what Absad Yagon is saying. He's answering our first question. Why does it say 2 times the same thing? In Pasuk Yudal it says Al Teinu. In Pasuk Yudzayin it says Lo Yisainu. The difference is because in Pasuk Yudzayin it adds 4 words. Ki Ani Hashem Elokeichem. What does that mean? I'm going to get you. So the repetition is Einish. In Pasuk Yudal he tells you that Azhara, don't do the Aveda. And if you do it, you have what to fear because I'm going to be on your trail. Which is a simple answer to question 1. Only problem is, I really am not sure if that's what the Rasag means, but go argue with me. Now next is Rashi. Rashi is on the top on the left, page 1. And Rashi gives a completely different answer, and the answer that Rashi gives, this is the classic answer. This is the answer in Shas. This is the answer in the Gemara. This is the way it's explained in Halach. And remember, we have 3 questions. Question 1 is, why did it say twice the lav of Onaa? Question 2, why is it spoken in the context of Karkois? There ain't another Karkois. And question 3, how come in most cases is this individual identified as Amisai, and at the end of Pasuk Yudal identified as Achiv? So Rashi answers the first question. Oy kone miyad amisecha al toinu zok Rashi zu Onaas moment. This means to cheat, which means either to overcharge or to underpay about money. Now I am of course not reading everything with you, so I'm going to say something here without reading it inside. And that is that a lot of the Chazal, this is the Gemara in Masechta Bava Metzia, reads the word miyad. You see on page was oikone miyad amisecha? The Gemara says davar hanikne miyad liyad. Oikone miyad means I'm buying something and I take it from your hand. Real estate I don't take from your hand. Real estate you don't hand to another person. Right? Real estate stays where it is. You make a transaction, whatever you give a shmata, a kinyach lipin, or whatever it is, vesach gadol paratz, kesef, shtar, chazaka. We talked about this last year. You can get the tapes if you can find them, right? But land, you don't hand miyad liyad. The Chazal, the Gemara says, "Aykonim miyad amisacha." This is talking about metaltalin. It's not talking about karka. That when you sell or buy a commodity which you can carry, an animal, a car, a truck, a boat, is a shtickle kled, a ship. Since it can be moved, so you can, it goes under the category of konim miyad amisach. And the halacha of Onaa, the halacha of overcharging or underpaying, only applies to konim miyad amisach. That's the diak of the psukim. Even though pasuk tezvav and tezayin talk about land, but these words, konim miyad, teaches us that pasuk Yudal is talking about metaltalin, about movable objects, that only things that you can move and sell them by actually handing them to another person, that the laws of Onaa apply. This is the position of the Gemara, and this is effectively what Rashi is going to hold. Not everyone is going to agree with this, but that's what Rashi is going to say. Yes. The halacha of non-Jews is that you have to follow the non-Jews' laws. You don't have to be more religious than their laws. You understand? In other words, if the non-Jews' laws permit excessive charging, you can charge. But if the non-Jews' laws prohibit it, you have an obligation, as long as the government is moral, you have a Torah requirement to follow their laws. That's the halacha when you get to goyim. What I just told you was a bit of a simplification, and you must understand that a very important part of Torah is the issue of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem. And never in the history of the world has that been more significant and relevant than now. Because it's such an open society. And forget, goyim respect us. They don't look at us as the way they used to look at Jews in the old country. And therefore it's very important for a Jew to honor himself and honor the Eibishter, because when Yid makes a Chilul Hashem, it's not that particular Jew that the Goy doesn't like. It's not even the collection of Jews, it's the Eibishter's the Torah. Why does the Torah say the same lav twice? And Rashi gives an answer. This is the answer also in the Gemara. Kan hizir aleinaz dvarim. The Torah here is warning against cheating and lying with words. It's a different lav. And in the Minyan Taryag, it's two different lavim. It's two different biblical prohibitions. You're not allowed to cheat a person in business, and you're not allowed to cheat a person's heart with words. Look what Rashi says. Do not cause another person anguish. Again, it's like don't give a person bad advice. It's to benefit the counselor. And the Gemara says, if you meet a Baal Tshuva, and you say, that's a Noz Dvarim. You meet a Baal Tshuva and you say, remember your former life, that's a Noz Dvarim. So Rashi says, this is the Gemara, this is the Halacha, the two different lavim. The first pasuk Yudal talk about a Noz moment. You're not allowed to cheat somebody in money. And again, there's two ways to cheat. Overcharge or underpay. And this is a different lav. You're not allowed to cheat a person with words. You're not allowed to hurt a person. You're not allowed to make a person feel bad. And you're not allowed to give them bad advice. And Vishema time, if you're going to say Mi Ideya, go prove that my intentions were bad. Right now in America, I saw a headline in a financial newspaper that said, "Who needs economists anyway?" Who needs economists anyway? For the ganze Welt avoid yeah. So you meet an economist. He says, "Well, I meant best. I meant well. I gave him advice. I meant well. Prove it." Maybe he meant it well. Maybe he was trying to rip you off. So the Torah says, fear God. The one who knows thoughts, he knows. Anytime there was an issue in Torah, which has to do with the heart, in other words, nobody else knows except the person who knows it. You have this in Parsha Kedoshim, which is 2 weeks of Parsha a lot. Anytime you have a mitzvah that is based on intent, you don't know what a person is thinking, you don't know what a person is feeling, welcome. Anytime you have a mitzvah based on intent, it says, you can fool him, but you can't fool me. And since this pasuk Yud Zayin according to Rashi, this is what the Gemara says, this is the halach. It is a separate lav. In addition to a nos moment, you're not allowed to cheat a person. Which again, technically is translated as inflation or deflation. Too high a price or too low a price. They're both considered not good. There's also a Noz Dvarim to hurt a person with words. And this is a lav, and the person is going to say, well, I meant well. So the Eibishter knows what you meant. And the Eibishter is the true judge. I want you to know the Gemara Bab Metzia that speaks about a Noz Dvarim says that the Beis Mikdash was destroyed. The Gemara says it was destroyed. And when the Beis Mikdash was destroyed, the gates of heaven were closed. And when people pray, they don't always get heard. But when a person complains that someone was ma'anoisei b'dvarim, if you complain to the Eibishter that the other guy ripped you off, maybe the Eibishter doesn't hear. But you complain to the Eibishter that someone embarrassed you. Like a ger, yosam and almana, a person who's, as it is, broken. And somebody verbally takes advantage of them. So the Torah says, he brings a pasuk, that the shari Onaa lo ninalo, that the doors of Onaa never close. And even in the times of Golus, this is a Gemara, even in the times of Golus, the Eibishter listens to a person who complains. Almana or a Yosem cries to the Eibishter, I will hear, because I am benevolent, because I am compassionate. And the Gemara Bab Metzia brings a story with Elazar ben Horkenes. This is the story. You know, Elazar ben Horkenes was put into Chedim. You know that, right? No time. But that's a fact. The Elazar ben Horkenes was put into Chedim. The Lashon Gemara is Baruchuhu. They blessed him. They didn't want to say Lashon Sheini Nachat. It's the end of that Perek. It's the end of the Hazah, the end of the fourth Perek in Bab Metzia, which speaks about Onaa. And after the Mishnah goes through that and all the halachas of Onaa in business, so the end of the Perek speaks about Onaa's Dvorim. And the last sugi in that Perek is the story with the Elazar ben Hyrcanus, that he was put into a cherem. And his wife was Rabbi Gamliel's sister. The Elazar ben Hyrcanus, Elazar HaGadol, was married to Rabbi Gamliel's sister. In other words, he was the brother-in-law of the Nasi. And it was Rabbi Gamliel who put him into the cherem. And there's a whole story in the Gemara. It's called Vesach Tanor Achnoi. So the Gemara says that the Elazar ben Hyrcanus, his wife, used to follow him every day when he davened. And she never let him say Tachnun. She never let him say Tachnun. Tchina, beg, the Eibishter. She was worried about her brother. One day she miscalculated. She thought it was Rosh Chodesh. And the Chodesh was the next day. And the Elazar ben Hyrcanus davened and said Tachnun, and Rabbi Gamliel died. So Maaseh Shai in the Gemara. The Achat Shaf Rabbi Gamliel was out of the Sanhedrin. And what Rabbi Gamliel did was din api din. It was api halacha. You know, there's a halacha. You're not allowed to, when rabbis argue and you're in the minority, you have to concede. And Elazar ben Hyrcanus said, no, I refuse to concede. I'm right. A voice came from heaven, a wall fell down, water went upstream. Everybody agreed to Elazar ben Hyrcanus. And Rabbi Shua ben Chananya says, Teira lei b'shamayim he. Nobody asked the Eibishter for his opinion. This is Chachamim. And Rabbi Gamliel was out of the Sanhedrin. And he put him into a nidui, and Rabbi Akiva went. Rabbi Akiva was his Talmud. Rabbi Akiva had to go and tell him. Rabbi Akiva went to tell Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus, Rabbi Elazar HaGadol. And then this is why the Gemara brings that story. Elazar ben Hyrcanus put into a cherem justifiably in halacha. But from his perspective, it was in from Onaa's dvorim, with words. And this is the Gemara's story to confirm this pasuk, that even in the Zman HaGolus, when the gates of heaven are closed, Sharei Onaa's Devarim, the Eibishter says he always hears a person who complains that he's been verbally abused, taken advantage of and hurt. But this is the Gemara Masechta Bab Metzia, and it's a halach. This is Rashi's opinion, that the second pasuk, V'lei Seinu, was a different lav completely. The first one is the lav of Onaa's moment, not allowed to overcharge or underpay. And this is Onaa's Devarim, the end of Rashi. The next item on our list is the Even Ezra. Even Ezra doesn't know about the Gemara, V'tish V'kein Zach. I mean, Rashi's Pshat is a Gemara, yeah? Even Ezra, page 1. Back to page 1 again. Even Ezra says, and again, what's Even Ezra's question? The same question everybody else has. Why do you have to have the same lav 2 times? Pasuk Yud Dalet says, Al Tainu. And Pasuk Yud Zayin says, V'loi Sainu. 2 times the same thing, you're not allowed to cheat? So Even Ezra is a very practical answer. Very practical answer. He's a practical guy. And like I said, Even Ezra knew the Gemara, but in Pshutei Shal Mikra, he's not bound by the Gemara. So Even Ezra says like this. Al Tainu. Even Ezra on the left, in the middle, on the first page. Al Tainu Rakim Ispashon. You shouldn't overcharge, only according to the years. Now, what does Even Ezra say? Rakim Ispashon. Now, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this, the halach is Ein Ala Karkois. When it comes to real estate, there's no such thing as inflation and deflation. That's the halach. So Even Ezra makes sure he doesn't know. Al Tainu Rakim Ispashonim. You cannot charge more than the number of years, which is the pasuk Tezvav's reference to real estate. Remember what I told you? One of the controversies is that they bring Onaa in the context of karka. The Even Ezra says, no, it means you're not allowed to overcharge for real estate. And by the way, some of the Mefarshim, even the halacha Mefarshim, explain the difference. If you charge too much for land, or too little for land, that's one thing. But if you charge for 10 seasons, and you're selling it only for 5, that's not overcharging. That's out and out cheating. The Ramban mentions this also. In other words, there's a difference between overcharging for real estate and cheating a person. You know, if I tell you I'm selling you 10 pounds of potatoes, and 10 pounds of potatoes should cost $3, and I charge you $5, I know. But if I'm telling you I'm selling you for 10 pounds of potatoes, and I give you 5, I'm pashta ganev. That's not Onaa, that's gneva. So there's some Rishonim who hold that that's the pshat, that when it comes to Seyachuzah, land in the Eretz Yisrael which was never sold latzmisus, you couldn't sell it forever because it was yours as a birthright. It was only sold for harvests, for seasons, till the Jubilee, which meant that even when the land was sold, really you didn't sell the ground itself, you sold its value, its worth. Therefore, That's not called overcharging or undercharging. That's called plain ripping a guy off. It says, Al Tainu Rak Mitzvah. You shouldn't charge more than Mitzvah Shalom. Turn to page 2. V'tam leitainu ish asamise azhara lamoicher. That's warning the seller. Ki arishan lakeina, because the first is about the buyer. That's it. Okay, now Even HaEzer is written in cryptai. Everything is written in code. But the Even HaEzer is very, very simple. You know why it says Einah twice? Because there's two halachas of Einah. A buyer can't underpay, and a seller can't overcharge. That's all. So Even HaEzer holds that when it says in Pasuk Daled, Oikonim Yadei Sechal Tainu, it's talking to the buyer. That when somebody buys something, he shouldn't underpay. The second Pasuk, Leitainu Ishes Amis, is talking to the seller. That when you sell, you shouldn't overcharge. So the Even HaEzer's solution to the double Einah is very simple. Pasuk Aleph says a buyer shouldn't underpay, and Pasuk Yudzayin says a seller shouldn't overcharge. Simple solution. Next, Evan, continue. I am both of your gods. Lashon Rabim. I am your gods. Ephraim mishnechem. I will punish both of you. Whoever it is that's cheating his fellow.
It's not the fault of the one overpaid because the other guy charges him more.
Exactly, right. This is not like shaykhad. The law of ribis is that you're not allowed to give it. You're not allowed to give it ribis. Not only he's not allowed to ask for it, it's kasper leititun le'neshech u'marva zitin achlecha. But Einah is only on the one who's cheating. But in each transaction, one is cheating. Either the seller is cheating or the buyer is cheating. Means whoever it is that's the cheater, either the seller or the buyer, I'll get him. This is the Even HaEzer. Page 6. I want to show you the Abar Benel. The reason I'm showing you the Abar Benel is because the Abar Benel is the same basic design as the Even HaEzer. Again, everybody's got the same question. Why does the Torah tell us twice, don't cheat? So Even HaEzer says twice. The first one is for the buyer, the second is for the seller. Rashi said, and the halacha is, it's two different lavim, two different prohibitions. One is don't cheat in money, and the other don't cheat with words, right? Rasag, if I'm right, says the first one is azhar, and the second is einish. The first one is don't do it, and the second one is I'm going to punish you for it, which is very interesting. If I'm correct in my reading into the words of the Rasag. The Even HaEzer says one is for the seller, one is for the buyer, and the second is for the seller. What does the Abar Benel say? He says like this. V'hinei zochar, top of the page 6 on the left. V'hinei zochar b'mitvas hashmita v'ayevel b'lashon yachid. All the laws of Shemitah and Yevel are written in single tense. You should do, you know, you shouldn't, etc. Each one of us is instructed individually. We keep these mitzvahs personally. The moment the Torah starts talking about business and cheating, it changes from singular to plural. Because you can't cheat yourself, at least you don't want to, right? Anytime there's any kind of a sale, anytime there's a possibility of A cheating B or B cheating A, there's two people involved, so it changes from a lashon yachid to a lashon rabbi. Now go to the next vertical line. Ve'inyin hamemker mechiras achuzah. He holds selling means selling land. V'chein eikone kinyan achuzah, or buying. He says also means buying land, selling and buying land. Al tainu ishas achav, don't cheat one another. It's a lema. This means le'akena lemecha v'le'amecha lekena. The buyer should not cheat the seller, and the seller shouldn't cheat the buyer. The Abar Benel also, like Even HaEzer, makes believe he doesn't know the halacha of einin ola karkois. Macht sich nicht wissendig. This idea that there's no such thing as too high or too low a price in real estate is in halacha, but it's not in pshat. You understand? Rashi agrees with this halacha b'pashtus, but the Even HaEzer doesn't. He says that these two psukim are talking about real estate. Don't overcharge, don't underpay, and there's two lavim, you shouldn't overcharge or underpay. But like this, Even HaEzer says that the first pasuk is for the buyer, the second pasuk is for the seller, right? The Abar Benel says something different. No, the first pasuk is for a buyer and a seller who are on equal footing. Two people who are both middle class, or two people who are both wealthy, or two people who are both poor, shouldn't cheat each other. We're on the equal footing. What's the second pasuk? What does the second pasuk say? Don't cheat one another. Fear God. Says Abar Benel, that's talking about where there's a buyer and a seller, where one is much wealthier than the other. The pasuk says separately. It's one thing when people are involved, when they're more or less equal. Torah says don't cheat. The Torah gives a separate azhara where the two people involved are in completely different financial places, where one is at an incredible advantage and the other is at an incredible disadvantage. So the Torah second time, don't cheat when you can get away with it. Fear God. And that's the second arrow. When it says then, it means a wealthy buyer. He's in a position. The seller must sell. He's desperate. He needs the cash. What happens when you need money? What you're selling is devalued. His hand is desperate. He's only selling because of desperation. I told you before, the Gemara says, anytime a person sells, there is an assumption that he's selling it because he has no choice. And that's why a seller is always at a disadvantage in Torah law. No, don't cheat him. Don't cheat him even though you could. You should fear God. That's why it says, he lowers and he raises. In other words, you think you're rich, the other guy's poor, I can take advantage. The Rebbe is just paying attention. You're not afraid of him. But you should be afraid of the revolving wheel. The tahitik of the stachlas kamei of Parnasa. And v'amar ki ani adeshem alekeichem shakel b'yadai kechem b'yadai yitish. No, I'm God. Now you're rich and he's poor. If you're not going to be honest, things could change and change in a hurry. And therefore, v'leiteinu ishas amise, even if you could get away with it. So Abarbanel, as a pashton, says that the reason you have twice the lav of a no, one is for two people, a buyer and a seller who are more or less on an equal footing, and the second is when one is at a distinct disadvantage over the other. Now, the next item is the Ramban. Now, the Ramban is very, very long. And how do I say this? I guess the delicate way to say this is that Ramban is after Rashi and after the Even Ezra, so we have what's called the advantage of hindsight. What we have in these psukim, and again I'm repeating this again, we have a fundamental question. Why does Hashem say twice, with a space of 3 psukim, the same lav 2 times? Don't cheat. Twice. So Rasak says the first time it's a warning, second time it's punishment. Rashi says the first time is business, the second time is words. Even Ezra and Abarbanel say it's 2 different things. Even Ezra says one is for the buyer and the other is for the seller. Abarbanel says when they're equal and when they're unequal. Ramban is saying, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff? And essentially what Ramban is going to tell us is, I've got a conflict. We have Pshat and we have Mesoira. We have Pshat and we have Shleishes Rebidis HaTeira Nidreshes Ben, what we call Halacha. Halacha, in this particular case, gives an interpretation, which is the law, but its fit into the words is very, very, very difficult. Look at the underline. If you look on page 1 on the right, you've got 1 arrow, a second arrow, and then you got 2 arrows near the bottom, right? 4 or 5 lines. You see the lower arrows? 4 or 5 lines above those arrows. I underlined 1 line. Aval al korchenu. You see it? Aval al korchenu on the right side, at the bottom, about 10 lines from the bottom. Ramban says I got 2 choices. I could follow Pshat. In other words, I could follow Even Ezra, I could follow Abarbanel, and they're not the only ones that say that these psukim have to be interpreted in the literal sense of the word, that you're not allowed to overcharge for real estate. But the halacha is not like that. The Ramban says the law does not interpret these psukim bepashtus. The law makes it very plain. Ain't in all the karkois. The Torah says don't cheat when you're selling land, but the halacha is there's no such thing as cheating when you're selling land. So the Ramban brings you both. He brings you the pshat. He brings you the halacha. And says, I don't know. The Ramban is not saying, I don't know. These are 2 points of view. He says, the halacha is the halacha aval. However, al kolcheda, you will be forced. Nitztarech lahates mikroit. You're going to have to bend the psukim. Mipshuta from the simple pshat. V'nema sheyir kol postek oim ba'atzmi. And separate the psukim. Postek Yudal is separate. Tazvav and Tazayin is separate. And Yud Zayin is separate. Ramban says, to squeeze the halacha into the psukim makes the flow very, very, very unsmooth. So obviously the bottom line is our religion revolves around the law, the halachic interpretation of these psukim, but it's not a smooth read. as it were. The pshat is much smoother, but the pshat is not la halacha. What is the difference? The difference is very simple. Is the Torah saying don't overcharge for real estate? That's the question. Because in pshat it's obviously saying don't overcharge real estate, but in halacha it's not saying that. So the Ramban decides to come up with a pshara, a resolution, to make it fit. Okay, let me repeat. The law says that there's no law of inflation and deflation by land. Only by what's called the things that you could move, not by land. Problem is, in these psukim, the Torah says don't overcharge and gives an example from real estate. So the Ramban, I don't know what to do. So the Ramban offers a number of solutions. And the bottom of the page is where the Ramban that we're going to read begins. Va'ani choishev. You see it? 3 lines from the bottom of page 1 on the right. Va'ani choishev, it's my opinion. Oit svara, another approach. Shavadai, there's no question. Hamanes chavei ladas, if you willfully, if you deliberately overcharge or underpay somebody, cheat somebody, it's a sin. Whether you're overcharging or underpaying for a camera, or you're overcharging or underpaying for a house. Shebehen dibera kosav, the Torah means both. You are not allowed to recklessly overcharge or recklessly underpay for anything. Because inflation and deflation, it ruins markets, it's not fair to the people, but also it destroys the whole economy. Shabahan dibet akosar, the Torah means both. Alteinu ishasacha b'mishpash shana machalayevel means you're not allowed to cheat about commodities and you're not allowed to cheat about land. Turn to page 2, upper right, please. I'm sorry, a little bit below the upper right. The Ramban, you see it? Shehu mazi, the Torah warns, sheyiknu v'yimkiru, when you buy and you sell, it should be lefi hashanim. You should not overcharge or underpay for anything, including land. Second line, please. You have it? Our rabbis put in a stipulation, Beino Tashlumin. The Chachamim were the ones who said that if you overcharge and underpaid, you have to return the difference or overturn the sale. You understand? And the Chachamim's enactment was only for metaltalin. The Ramban has a very simple solution. You're not allowed to overcharge or underpay for land or for commodities. The fact that halacha is einay nola karkois, there's no such thing as inflation or deflation by land, doesn't mean that it's ethical. It's unethical. It's an aveda. But you don't have to pay it back. That's all. If you charge somebody for a home that's worth $500,000, $1 million, you're a cheater. But there's nothing you can do about it. Because ain't no lakakoi. So the Ramban's solution is you could make the halacha and the pshat jibe. The halacha says there's no such thing as inflation or deflation by land. The psukim are talking about inflation, deflation by land. So the Ramban's solution is you're not allowed to rip a person off about land. You just don't have to pay it back. That's all. That's a very simple way of resolving the differences. Okay, we're on page 1. Yes, but it's different. When it's in Eretz Yisrael and you're selling toys, it's possible that you push the ganev, as you'll see in the Cheskuni, in the Mesiporu in a moment. In Chutz La'aretz, it's cheating. If you overcharge, it's cheating. It's not gneve. But sure, there is such a thing as charging too much or too little. Sure. The Cheskuni has a different kvetch. And this is what you just touched on. The Cheskuni says the difference between real estate, which is sold outright, and real Cheskuna is on the lower left on page 1, and real estate that's sold in Eretz Yisrael. When real estate is sold outright, there's no I know. But when real estate is sold in Eretz Yisrael and it's sold for seasons, because you have to give it back at the Jubilee, which means you're really selling harvests, that's not the overcharging. You're plain simple ripping the guy off. Because you tell a person, I'm selling you 10 harvests, and you charge him for 20. You didn't overcharge, you cheated him. So therefore, that's not a din in Enola Karkois, that's a din in Gneve. On page 1 on the left, Ava Bisha'am Ein Enola Karkois. Though the Chachamim say there's no such thing as overcharging or underpaying for land, Mikoma can still b'mispash shanim tikne leitiyei no b'minyan ashanim. When you charge a person too much or pay a person too little for seasons, that's not deflation or inflation, that's gneva. If a season is worth $1,000 and there's 10 seasons till Yovel, and you pay $20,000, you were cheated. You weren't overcharged. Okay, Ka'amram Zal, the Gemara says, Kol Dova Shabamida Shabmishka Shabaminyan, anything that has to do with dollars, with measurements, there's no such thing as Eino. If someone says, I'm selling you 100 pounds of potatoes for $1.29 a pound, okay, and he ends up charging you $2 a pound, so you can start debating Eino, right? But if he gives you 90 pounds of potatoes and charge you for 100, even if he charged you exactly $1.20, say, I want my money back. Why? You're a ganef. You're not a chazer, you're a ganef. You didn't give me what we asked. So the Sipurnu offers a very, very good solution to this question. Selling land in Eretz Yisrael is not truly the classic case of selling real estate, because it's stei achuz, it has to be returned. And therefore this is not a matter of overcharging or underpaying, it's a matter of Pashat being a ganef. That's all. So we're finished with page 1 and 2. Now, there's so much more material here I cannot tell you. It's a gvald. It's very, very beautiful. Let's do page 3. And we'll do the middle arrow. Kuf Yud Zayin. This is a medrash. This is the Gemara Masechta Bava Metzia that I mentioned at the beginning of the class. You see what I'm reading? Tana Rabbanan, the Gemara says, this is the Shas, which is like Rashi says. Why do you have the lav of Eino twice? The first lav of Eino was about business, and the second lav of Eino was about words. You're not allowed to cheat a person out of their life with words. Okay? You're telling me it's talking about cheating a person with words, perhaps it means cheating a person in finance. Since it said 3 psukim earlier, just a few psukim earlier, you spoke about cheating another person in finance. How do you know it's mom and omer? So we already know you're not allowed to cheat a person in matters of finance. Why does it say 3 psukim later, the exact same lav, a second time? And for the Gemara, Beinaz Dvarim. You know what Beinaz Dvarim mean? You're not allowed to cheat a person with words, right? You know, when you embarrass a person, what is embarrassing a person called? Halbonas ponim. You make a person's face go white. The Gemara says, Ozil sumke v'osa chivra. Ozil chivra v'osa sumke. The red goes away and the white comes. The white goes away and the red comes. Halbonas ponim. You make a person's face go white. The blood falls out of his face. And it's called retzicha. You're spilling a person's blood. That's what it's called. This is called a Noaz Dvarim. With words you can destroy a human being. And this is a lav, it's a separate lav de'iraisa of a Noaz Dvarim. Ha-ketzad. Im haya bal tshuva. If you meet a bal tshuva, al yem alei, do not tell him zacheir masech harashet. Remember your earlier actions. Im haya ben geidim. If his parents were converts, al yem alei zacheir masech harashet. You have no yichas. Im haya geid, if he himself was a convert, ubal lil meteira. Al Yemalei, do not say, this is not in the Gemara, I think this is even in the Mishnah. A mouth that ate treif. Ba lil meiteira shenema pi agvura. You learn teira that comes directly from the Meibishtin. Im hayu yisurim boyin. A bit of the person is suffering. Or im hayu yisurim boyin. Or im hayu chalayin boyin. God forbid illnesses. Or sheim kabed is bonav. God forbid. Al Yemalei, do not say. Kederach she'amlu chaved of the Eiv. Hale yirascha kislascha. In other words, mistame, you're not such a big tzaddik, and that's why you're suffering, and that's why you have illness, and that's why, God forbid, you're burying your children. In other words, you're not allowed to use words to get at a person's weaknesses, to be makne, to chepezach, to bother another person. That's called a Noaz Dvarim, which is Aser De'erais. This is the Gemara Masechta Bava Metzia. The Chinuch brings 2 lavim. You see, on page 4 you have Shin Mem, and on page 5 you have Shin Mem Al. These are 2 separate lavim. It's 2 separate biblical prohibitions. One is a Noaz Momen, not allowed to cheat a person in Momen, and the other is a Noaz Dvarim, not allowed to cheat another person with words. Now the halachas we did a little bit. The Nigla you can ask a Rav. The Chinuch tells you, I just want to show you the arrow on page 4. Sheiresh HaMitzvah. What is the reason for this mitzvah of not inflating or deflating prices? What's worth with making an extra quick buck? What's wrong? Yadua. It's reasonable, it's commonsensical. If there wouldn't be such a mitzvah in the Torah, common sense would dictate that there should not be allowed to be such terrible fluctuations in markets, too high and too low. You're not allowed to take people's money by lying to them and tricking them. Listen to these words. Listen to the chinuch's words, the beautiful words. We should all earn through our efforts what God has given him benevolently in his world, honestly and fairly. Everybody benefits. You worked, you should get what you're worth. You shouldn't be underpaid and you shouldn't overcharge. And everybody benefits. If we get into the habit of not cheating others, others won't cheat him as well. Although there'll always be one guy who's a better trickster, more than other people. Maybe his children are not going to be so smart. Other people are going to trick them back. In other words, it's never a good idea to cheat people, even if you think you can get away with it, right? The crows come home to roost. Consequently, the laws of Onaa are totally reasonable. This is incredibly beneficial in keeping the civilization constant. This goes into the category of mitzvahs that are l'sheves yitzara. In other words, even though mitzvahs are, like the Lashon Rambam, gzeiros hakel, the divine decrees, but mitzvahs also have a human side. This mitzvah is incredibly down to earth. This is about people. Society is not going too high and too low. In other words, what we call in America regulation, and it's a very, very, very controversial issue because we live in a capitalist system. And the whole idea about capitalism is let the market run itself. Keep government out of it. Why? Because when you have regulation, you prevent the great lows, but you also stifle the great highs. You understand what that means? You don't let economies to collapse, but you also hold economies back. And history has proven to us from the Great Depression and from many events that without regulation, people will be greedy to the point of self-destruction. Look at the 19th century. It was even more so in the 19th century when the whole idea of capitalism was first introduced. You know, the belief of capitalism was, let people make money and everybody will benefit. And some people made money, but a lot of people were taken advantage of. And not taken advantage of where their lives were improved a little bit. Their lives became miserable. So you have to have regulation. But too much regulation is no good, and too little regulation is no good. And the halachas of Onaa are Torah's regulations. And I don't know how you would reconcile Torah's regulations with strict capitalism. You'll have to speak to an economist. And I ain't one. Okay, so right now nobody could blame me. I got other issues on my plate. Now, on page 5, you have Onaa's Dvorim. He says, Sheiresh mitzvazu, the middle arrow, near the bottom. Sheiresh mitzvazu yadua, ki hu laseh shalom bein abrias. There should be peace and civilization. V'gadol hashalom, peace is a good thing. Shabai habracha matzuya ba'elam. If people live in peace, they have all the blessings in the world. V'kasha ha'machlekes, and machlekes is hard. Kam makolas, v'kam matakolas fluya is boy. Machlekes brings klala and takola. I will not translate, you understand yourself. And then in the next paragraph, he goes on to talk about different aspects of Onaa's Dvorim, but our people have to push it, bite their lips. If you can say something hurtful to another person, don't say it. It's a lav de'eraisa. You think about it, Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi of the Sanhedrin. Rabbi Ben Hyrcanus was excommunicated because he was being wrong. And Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus says, Tachnun, and Rabbi Gamliel died. That's the tide. Shari Onaa, Onaa's Dvorim lo yinin alu. Afil b'zman agolos. So Gemara Masechta Bava Metzia. Now the Alshich, which is on page 7 and page 8, he makes the observation that I told you in the beginning of the class. How come the pasuk begins with Amisecha, Kitim Kiro Mimka La Amisecha, Ekonomi Yad Amisecha, and finishes, Amisecha means your friend, And it finishes, Alteinu ish es achiv, that you shouldn't cheat one man, his brother. And then in Pasuk Yud Zayin it says, V'leiteinu ish es amisei, one person should not deceive or cheat with words his brother. And here it says, ish amisei, your friend, this diuk about amisei and ish es achiv is found in the Alshich, and also in the Chasam Sefer, Teras Meisha, which is on page 9. But the interpretations are diametrically opposed. In the mind of the Alshich, Ishes Achiv is more intimate than Ishes Amisei. In other words, you treat your brother than you treat your friend. So he would say like this. If you look on page 7, you have a scribble from last year which a little bit drives you crazy, but what you have to see is the Hebrew letter Aleph on the right, and then the Hebrew letters Beis, Gimel, and Dalet in the center. So the Hebrew letter Aleph is question Dalet, Ki nichnas b'loshen amis, v'yatza b'lashein achva. He begins with a term that denotes friendship, and he ends with a term that denotes brotherhood. Like it says, ish is achiv and not es amisei, and this is his observation. So he answers the distinction in as follows. Because he talks about the pasuk, that when you buy and sell, you should be equitable. Equitable means when you sell something, you should ask yourself what would happen if you were the buyer. And if you're buying something, you should ask yourself if you were the seller. And you should treat each other like friends. And then by Beis he says, when it comes to getting benefit from business exchanges with your fellow, you should treat him as a friend, that though you want to benefit, obviously that's what business is about, but your friend should benefit as well. That's the there should be some gain for him as well. But when it comes to being dishonest and overcharging, in this case, we do not say don't cheat your friend. Treat him like a brother. In other words, he should be, as far as you're concerned, a brother. He shouldn't be overcharged by you, even for a penny. That's why he begins with the word friend in business affairs, and he ends with the word brother about the issue of inflation, that when it comes to charging without fairness and equity, he says you should treat him like your brother. And near the end of the next paragraph, I underline those two lines. And he gives a different interpretation to the word Alteinu ish es achiv, where he says, if you're going to overcharge your brother or underpay, it's only your brother that you're cheating. You're not cheating, and I'm going to eventually correct it. Now in the next paragraph, he says a little bit differently, or perhaps differently, that when people buy and sell, you should only buy and sell in such a way where you yourself would buy and sell under similar conditions. And then he says, about 5 lines into the paragraph, and then Alteinu ish es achiv, then you're not going to cheat your brother. In other words, when one is careful in his buying and selling, not to sell his friend only a cost, he would buy, then you for sure won't cheat him. So in other words, the difference between the first pshat and the second is the first pshat is talking about buying and selling, he should also benefit, and overcharging, treat him like a brother. The second one is that when you're buying and selling, you should treat him like a brother, and consequently you for sure will not cheat him. And then in Dalid, which is on the left, the third column from the right to left, he says, Alteinu ish es achiv means to say that sometimes you're cheating him and he's cheating you, and you sort of feel like it's fair. He's being cheated in the quality of the fruit, you're being cheated in the quality of the price, or vice versa. So what's wrong with cheating him if he's cheating you back and everybody is aware of it? So the Torah says, no, you should know, even though you're, so to speak, cheating each other, Hashem is going to punish the two of you and hold you both responsible for a na'ah. And here is also a reason why it says ish es achiv, one to the brother, each one is having a na'ah in relationship with his fellow and not amisei. Now please turn to page 8 in the Alshich, where he's talking about Onaa's dvarim. Onaa's dvarim, as you know, is you're not allowed to hurt another person with words. And the Gemara says, Shari Onaa le'ninalu, as I said earlier. And here the pasuk says, V'leiteinu ish es amisei, do not hurt with words a man his fellow. A man his fellow means you are the man who would be hurting a fellow with words, and you shouldn't do it. So the Alshich says, sometimes a person feels like I'm a man and the other person is nishka mensch, as if somehow I'm better than him. So you say, ish es amisi, when you have this elitist attitude, and you look at your fellow as though only you are a mensch, and he's less, so you should know that you should fear God, and this attitude of I'm a man and he isn't, is faulty. I am both of your gods. The meaning of the term Alekecha, both of your gods, means your false sense that you're an ish and he isn't is not true, because I am the God of both of you equally. Look at the words near the end of the paragraph there. You're equal. How do you know who's preferred to the Eibishter? And he begins the next paragraph, or perhaps a little bit differently. When it comes to hurting a person with words, you think you're touching your friend and not anybody else. It says, that's not the case. Don't verbally hurt a fellow because of you should fear your God. You're touching the honor of your God. I'm his God as well. And therefore, when you verbally abuse another person, you're dishonoring the one who's God, the God of your fellow, which is the Eibishter. And therefore, Onaa's Devarim is not only verbally abusive to the fellow, it's verbally abusive to the Eibishter himself. Now this is the end of the Alshich. And the Alshich's interpretations seem to suggest that the word Achiv, Ish and Achiv, is a more intimate kind of a relationship than Ish es Amisai. And the point is that I know you have to be more careful than ordinary Mekcho Memket, and you should treat your brother, your business associates, as a brother, not simply as a friend. The Teres Moshe, that means to say the Chasam Sefer, the Alshich Sefer is also called Teres Moshe, makes the same observation but the opposite insight. He says that Ish es Achiv is actually less intimate than Ish es Amisai. And he observes that in the first pasuk Yudalad, it says, Al Tainu, it starts off, V'cheitim k'lo mimkar ma'misach ha'konu ha'miyada misach, Al Tainu Ish es Achiv. And in pasuk Yudayin it says, Leiseinu Ish es Amisai. How come in the first pasuk it says you shouldn't cheat your brother, and the second pasuk it says you shouldn't hurt with words your friend? So he holds the Chasam Sefer, that a brother means a Yid who's not close to you. He's simply related to you because you're from the same nation. And a friend means somebody who's intimate with you, is in the same madrega. And he says that your Amisai is a tzaddik. And Ish es Achiv is a Yid, but he's a Rasha. And he brings an interesting idea. If you look on page 9, at the bottom of the right column, I'm going to begin where I made the vertical line. V'hinei. Ksivayd l'teinu Ish es Amisai. So when it comes to money matters, it says you shouldn't cheat your brother. When it comes to verbal abuse, it says you shouldn't hurt verbally your friend. This is a reference to hurting a person with words. This is what the Mishnah says. Don't tell about tshuva, remember your old deeds. So he says like this, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. It says in the Mordechai, 4 lines from the bottom. The Bainas Mammon, when it comes to money matters, which means also about business, you're not allowed to cheat even at Rasha. However, when it comes to abusing a person with words, it says Ish es Amisei, a man his fellow, which means the word Amisei, as it says in Chazal, is Am she'itcha b'teira u'b'mitzvah, someone who's like you in the same level of Yiddishkeit. In other words, any asa laheines, this prohibition against verbally hurting and abusing is alamisha ite b'teira, only someone who's on your level in Teira. Al kain, l'yemer labal tshuva, you're not allowed to tell someone who's already done tshuva and he's now in a good state or stage, before one does tshuva, so therefore the first pasuk says, Leitenu ish es achiv, means even a rasha, because when it comes to money you can't even cheat a rasha and overcharge a rasha or underpay a rasha. When it comes to words, he says you're allowed to verbally abuse a rasha, and therefore it says Leitenu ish es amisai, because only somebody who's amche itcha b'teira b'mitzvah is not allowed to be a nas dvarim. So the Chasam Sefer makes the same observation as the Alshich, but with the opposite emphasis. According to the Alshich, a brother is actually closer to you, and according to the Teres Moshe, according to the Chasam Sefer, it's the other way around. And on page 10, you have the Panim Yafas. The Panim Yafas in this pasuk is incredibly long, and I just copied one page. And he says some very, very beautiful things. The Panim Yafas says, yes, it's true that there's something called the Cheich Chasam Misecha. You're allowed to use words to put a person in his place. The Panim Yafas has a kasha. I don't understand. Taita says you're not allowed to tell a person who did tshuva, remember your earlier days. Says the Parsha Behar, why not? Everybody knows v'chatasi negdi samid. You never finish with Avedis, and you can always do better tshuva. So what's wrong with telling another person about his Avedis? You're helping him do tshuva. So the Parsha Behar says, yes, you could tell another person, remember his Avedis, help him do tshuva, but you got to be very, very careful that it shouldn't be personal. That when you are giving mussar to another person, and it goes under the category of a nos dvorim, you're hurting the person with words, but it's because you want that person to do a better tshuva. It goes under the category of are you doing it taka to help that person, or are you getting some pleasure from exposing another person's faults? You understand? So this that the Chassam Sofer says that ish es achiv, even a rasha you can't cheat with mammon, but a rasha you could verbally abuse. The Parsha Behar in effect is following. And he says that it's true that there are times, he says, you're allowed to embarrass somebody else, but make sure you're criticizing him is not going to make you a sinner. Or as he puts it, you're going to take the sin and he's going to lose it. What's the criteria? If the echocha is taka for the other person, it's a constructive thing. But if there's a mischabed, b'klein chaveda, you're benefiting, you're enjoying exposing another person's faults, then leitisa alav chet. So the rattle that I just did was the Al-Shich, the Chassam Sofer, and the Parsha Behar. The Al-Shich and the Chassam Sofer analyze the difference between Amisai and Achiv. The Al-Shich sees Achiv as a higher level than Amisai. The Chassam Sofer sees Achiv as a lower level than Amisai. And the Parsha Behar says, sure, there is a place for a Nos Devarim, but you have to make sure that it's L'Shem Shamayim. The Kabbalah and the Chassidus is going to have to wait for another week.